This is the 8-9 Combo.
This is the 8-9 Combo. I'm Brett McKay. This is Harry Jones. And, mate, have the celebrations in Bordeaux finished yet?
Jeez, I don't know. How's it? It's always really fun to watch what they'll come up with next. Face sliding and zebras and so forth. I'm reminded, however, in the aftermath of this incredible win by Bordeaux, of one of the oldest monotheistic religions in the world, Zoroastrianism, which, as you know, is a Persian religion and it precedes Islam. And Ahura Mazda was the deity. It was the sort of this deity that was both good and bad, dualism. And I think of Henry Pollock because, I mean, he's a saint, but he's not also. He's also not a saint.
He's not
saintish. And it was clear that in the celebrations of which you speak, that he was very much on the minds of Bordeaux, because almost every celebration had a pulse taking and a basketball shot and a reference to Pollock. And then we even learned that there was more shenanigans. So Bordeaux, keep on celebrating, but let's just go ahead and celebrate Bordeaux. I think maybe leave Henry alone right now. You're almost making it too much about Henry.
Yeah. A little bit. That was quite strange, actually. But anyway, we will probably get into that a little bit more. His cheers. What are we giving cheers to this weekend around the rugby world?
Well, my cheer is for passion. So I'll just reiterate the sight of a town rallying around a team brings to mind why we even have professional teams in the first place. Northwestern industrial England, where someone decided Liverpool needs to have a team and we're going to go to battle against Manchester. And it's just a reminder of where it all came from. The passion that we see in France, post-Champions Cup, from Brigitte Macron shoving his... Oh, wait, sorry, that's the wrong face shove. She was doing a Jefferson Poirot on Emmanuel's face. But rumor has it was just play. So just, it was just handbags.
We'll see. I am giving cheers to Augustin Creevy, who announced his retirement over the weekend after Benetton missed the URC finals and after retiring from international rugby last year. Played for 10 clubs. He started as a flanker at Biarritz and then went back to his original club in Buenos Aires, San Luis, where he recovered from a shoulder injury and then re-skilled as a hooker, joined Claremont as a medical joker hooker on Mario Ledesma's recommendation. Then he went to Montpellier, then Worcester. He led the Jaguares for 59 games in Super Rugby, London Irish, Sale, and then joined Benetton this year. He's the most capped Argentinian, 110 matches for Los Pumas. Proper legend of the game.
Never met him, but he seems very likable. One of those guys, when he sings the anthem, no matter what you think of that incredible operatic intro to the Argentinian anthem, when he emotes,
I'm glad you mentioned it. I mean,
and I hope he sings well, because that's a lot of volume coming out of that mouth.
That's a really good point. It's a really good point. And look, shout out, Danny Kerr announced as well earlier in the week that he's pulling the pin. One club man only ever played for Harlequins, and Dan Coles on Tuesday announced that he'll pull the pin at the end of the year as well. There's some long careers amongst those three, isn't there?
Yeah, and both those guys, the English guys, never took themselves too seriously. Always really good on the crack, and you can see why they're good on the pod.
Yes, absolutely. Huw Griffin is back for another great rugby chat in just a moment. But first, mate, tell the nice people why we love that they can push us closer to 8,000 subscribers of the 8-9 Combo.
It's the only way we can really know, unless you're someone who actually has become friends with us and pops us a note. We can only know that you really endorse our work if you will subscribe. That's the only thing we can actually see that's tangible, that we can touch. It's a statistic, and this is a stat-driven episode, by the way, and we're all about the numbers, but not really. We're about the soul and the heart, but also we like the numbers. Please.
Yeah. It's and your endorsement is what we've always craved. Yes. Exactly right. If you are watching us on YouTube, then just hit the red subscribe button down there in the bottom corner. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, on Apple Pods, any of the pod platforms, then hit follow, hit like, hit subscribe, whatever it happens to be, and make sure that you don't miss a minute. I can't ever recall a debutant having such an impact on our podcast that we've had them back a month later. You know his flat cap from the socials and from the wonderful HG Rugby YouTube channel. And it's great to welcome back to the pod after just 4 weeks, Huw Griffin. Hello, mate. Welcome back.
Hello. No one's more surprised than me. I didn't think it would be this quick. I don't know. Can you have a bolter for a podcast? I'm the 8-9 bolter.
Great question.
Yes,
Great
you're
question.
the bolter. Let's make him the bolter. Yeah,
that's absolutely true. That is
So,
absolutely true.
Someone, this is where it goes in rugby. You know, someone picks up an injury, you're in, and then the jersey's yours.
Rion's gonna fight you for it, but he's our mascot, so don't worry about it. He's the mascot, and you're the bolter. Yeah.
Yep, this is true. No, it's a quick turnaround. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's get straight into it. The champions. We'll get into the Champions Cup recap, and then we've got lots of things to talk about in terms of ERC finals, final rounds of Super Rugby, and the Premiership as well. But the Champions Cup final recap: Bordeaux 28 beat Northampton 20, as we know, in Cardiff on Saturday. Celebrations are almost certainly still going to some degree in Bordeaux right now. What has, apart from Henry Pollock gate, what has been the major fallout of the game here?
The socials, the fallout has been mind-blowing, much bigger than I would have thought, because you wouldn't have thought there would be a ton of animosity between Northampton Saints and Bordeaux. But for whatever reason, you know, I've got a Twitter account where I do French rugby, and it's literally non-stop, the notifications. In the 24 hours, any post that I put up had 400 likes, 35 quotes, whatever it was.
Wow.
Like on all sides. And I had not appreciated, you know, you said apart from the Pollock gate, but the Pollock saga has just grown arms and legs. And I think there's maybe a little bit of cynicism from a couple of publications who've chosen to make it about that rather than maybe their team losing. But I think to focus on maybe something a bit nicer about it, the partying has not stopped in Bordeaux.
I missed Damien Penaud on the Investec Zebras. I saw the pictures 24 hours later. I thought, when did that happen? What's going on there? And how much champagne was
the
involved?
main thing? Well, the Zebra got taken into the Bordeaux dressing room, which is impressive. And I think it's just genius. I don't know whether the people from Investec thought that would happen, but whatever, they've made something iconic there. But all I can tell you is that Maxime Lucu was spotted in a wheelchair in the parade in Bordeaux, and he was fine when he left the pitch. So something's gone on. They posted a picture of them all in hospital there next to each other. And, you know, the candidates for things that might have happened to Lucu are: he fell off the Zebra. He was jumping up and down too hard in the stands, and
he's done shin splints.
A non-specific Damien Penaud related incident.
I vote for the latter, because Damien Penaud always looks like a guy who will hurt you by mistake. You know, just one of those teammates that just catch an elbow in the bus from him. Yeah.
What do we propose the odds are of it being Zebra related? Is it 70%? Is it 80%?
It's the prevailing theory. I think it's the first thing that comes to everybody's minds, is that it's got to do with the Zebra. I don't think the Zebra made it back to France, whether that's because they couldn't get it into the overhead locker on the plane, or that there's some kind of quarantine related thing. You can't take Zebras across borders. I don't know. But for whatever reason, the Zebra isn't in Bordeaux, as far as I'm aware.
I will say this, as someone who's from Africa, that the Zebra is an incredibly malicious, aggressive, and injurious animal. When people say, why didn't they tame the Zebra? And they could have been the horses of Africa. You cannot tame a Zebra. It is horrible, a horrible beast. So I'm going to go there as my first, if I'm Inspector Clouseau, I'm looking into that as to who hurt Jason Statham.
Zebra-related injuries. zebra-related celebration injuries. There's
But
a
that's-
pod title.
Speaking of the rugby side of this, we always, it was interesting in some ways because it wasn't the top versus the top. It wasn't the number one of a league against number one of a league. And so there was always this sense that the Saints had to get lucky, but there was also a sense the Saints could get lucky. And the reason why we said that is it is wrapped up with Pollock and guys like Finn Smith and people that were just, Tommy Freeman that they had the smell of luck on them. And then in the aftermath, and now that I've looked at it, I go, they had to get really lucky. They almost did get lucky, but they weren't. And the most important part in which they weren't lucky is the reshuffle of the injury, both pre-match when Jorno Augustus went down, 107 carries, 64% gain line effectiveness, a hard smashing 8. And James Ram from Australia, 107 carries. That's 214 carries out of your normal season load. And he's also a high gain line. So I think those two things really hurt them, Hugh. I think that it's hard to imagine when you have to have so much luck. You're not the better team. You need everything to go right. And then that happens to you.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think that Saints got a little bit lucky in the game as it was. Bordeaux missed 3 out of their 4 conversions and only took 2 shots at 3. And then they stuffed up at least 2 maul tries that should have gone over, really, that a lot of other teams would have turned into tries. And like you say, I think the shuffle in the back 3 was absolutely catastrophic, losing 2 of your back 3. Obviously, Furbank, I kind of wondered, was he rushed back in? He's been out for so long. To bring him back for the final shows a lot about his value that he has there. But then whatever injury he had, it wasn't taking a knee to the temple in the first 5 minutes, which was it was pretty sickening to watch. But what the Saints backfield ended up being was Freeman at fullback, and I've sung the praises of Freeman. I think he absolutely deserves his spot on the Lions tour. He's not fullback, and he ran back everything. And I watched the game back just earlier before we started recording, and it's funny when you're watching a game when you're specifically looking for something. So I was specifically looking for how did Bordeaux kick, and then how did Saints deal with it. And from that back 3 being what it was, which was Freeman at fullback, they had Ollie Slatham on one wing, and then they were mostly dropping Alex Mitchell back to be the third cover. And Freeman ran absolutely everything back. He got 159 run meters in this game, and all of them were fielding kicks back to the gain line, get tackled. They didn't engage Bordeaux in a kick tennis once in the whole game. Didn't happen. Alex Mitchell, obviously we know Harry is something we discussed about off the ball. He finds himself on the wing. That's where he goes and bees, and which is one of the tiny little subplots I'm looking forward to in the Lions is Andy Farrell going to let him get away with that? Because Farrell must A, know that's what he does, and B, you don't think of him as the kind of coach who would make an exception for a player like that. So that's something that I'm keen to look forward to. But then I watched specifically for how many times Bordeaux found Mitchell, and it was a lot. They went for him. They went down on his wing a lot. They was seeking him out, and they got, especially in the second half, a lot of joy from doing that. And then on the other wing, they had Ollie Slatham, who, ball in hand, he's a classic case of a player who's very good in certain attributes, but has gaps in their skill set. And under the high ball, he's not your guy. If you get the ball in his hand in space, ask him to finish a one-on-one, fantastic. Yeah, let's do it. Let's get the ball to you. You'll do it. And that's why I don't think he's getting picked for England. He's gone from being England winger in the autumn to on the bench for Saints. And I think a lot of it is to do with that. I messaged Brett Igo a little while ago, and I said, Alex Mitchell's box kicks in the Six Nations were the longest, and they had in terms of hang time, longest hang time and shortest distance, but he had the fewest kicks retained. And I was like, what is going on with this? And Brett messaged me back and said, the man Slatham never even gets off the ground. And I think that was something that didn't work for them. So that back 3, I just think it was all losing Furbank, losing Ram was almost unrecoverable for them.
Yeah.
And
all teams have got scenarios where they lose a fullback, but no team plans or role plays even to lose their fullback in the second minute of a game. No one's putting Band-Aid over a fullback gap for 78 minutes of a game.
Yeah. Still, though, it did strike me that Bordeaux, they do this is part of their DNA anyway. The kicking long, let's have a foot race, let's go behind you. They did it too extreme in this game, and I was surprised that Saints didn't have a plan for it. You can understand in the first half where there was the big reshuffle of, okay, no one's figuring it out, and then the coach at halftime saying, look, remember, this was the plan, this is the scenario of how we deal with Bordeaux's long kicks. But it never came to fruition. Maybe Freeman running it back was the plan. If so, it didn't work. So that surprised me a little bit, of a key facet of Bordeaux. Saints didn't seem to have a plan to deal with, which was a bit of a surprise for me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It's I wonder if the old adage, you've got to lose one to win one, might befall Northampton, who, as we talked about in the post-mortem, Harry, it might have been a year too early. But obviously the challenge for them now is going to be to prove that 2025 wasn't a one-off, because Leinster is going to be good again next year. La Rochelle could easily get back up there. Toulouse will be fit and firing, you would think. So getting past the semi-final stage is going to be bloody hard work next year.
They had a structural problem in the year as a whole. They started out badly. They got behind in the Premiership to the degree that there's no way forward for
playing
them.
catch up from before Christmas.
They were more affected on a ratio basis by international players than other teams that had recruited around that. And so, in a sense, this was one of those ultimate, like Eddie Jones's plan, the smash and grab. Like, we're not supposed to be here. Maybe we are here a year early. But when it came down to it, there were a couple of moments, and they both involved Pollock, actually, where they were inches away from it actually working. And we would be sitting here right now going, wow, what a smash and grab job. There was, narrowly offside, and then there was the line-out trick. The other thing is they kicked to Alex Mitchell so much, they found him in the coffin corner, and very late in the match, that was the end, because once Alex got caught there, it really was done. And when you analyze it that way, I do think Northampton Saints coaches can go to their players and say, we weren't that far away. Now, obviously, we have to fix the league run because it bleeds over and we have bad habits. But I think they will look at the tape, they will sit down, look at the numbers, Hugh, and they will say, we are in a better position than many other clubs are, but we have to be calmer and execute on the day, no matter who we lose, no matter what happens. And I think the calm that you saw in Luku, having gone through the agony a year ago, was what you're talking about, Brett, is that's what Northampton has to pick up. Yeah.
They only have to show, going into next season, they only have to show the highlights of Leinster's quarterfinal thumping of Glasgow. Yeah. And then the highlights of what they did the next week. And that's all they need to do. That's what Leinster did last week. This is what we stopped them doing this week.
Yeah.
It's that simple. It was a really, really interesting game. It was it certainly wasn't the game that we were expecting in terms of the way it played out. But I don't think that actually took away from the match itself and the spectacle. And then everything that's flowed on since then is probably takes on legendary status in terms of French rugby celebrations. But it's been a really interesting tournament after the quarterfinals, from the quarterfinal stage onwards. So if they can get the pool stage and everything else right, there is still hope for the Champions Cup.
It's going so well, they're going to cancel it every fourth year and do something else instead.
Yeah, and isn't that interesting? So you win the round of 16, and your reward for that is to go and play in a completely different competition.
It's weird. I don't know if we've got time to get into the Club World Cup, but
I hadn't even given it much thought. You know what I think is one of the strangest things about all that? As far as I'm aware, and to my understanding, Super Rugby still hasn't signed off on the plan yet.
Well, they should sign right away, man. It's incredibly Super Rugby friendly.
Maybe,
It's bizarre and unbelievably ridiculous, actually, in favor of Super Rugby. So they should go ahead and sign it. To take 40 teams in the Northern Hemisphere plus Japan and squish them into a certain amount, and then take 11 teams and then give the same credibility doesn't make any sense to anybody.
Yes. But as I was having a few social media conversations about this when the news broke, there is no way Super Rugby would have agreed to it if it was 12-4. They just wouldn't have happened. So I agree with you. I'm sure they will sign up to the plan, but it's interesting that the story is broken and is now accepted as fait accompli. And to the best working knowledge down here, it hasn't actually been agreed to completely.
Well, I wonder, though, if there's a different position between New Zealand and Australia on that, because I know the New Zealand teams would dearly love to settle some of these things. A rampant Chiefs or a dominant Crusaders has always liked the idea of going up there and showing who's boss. But yeah, the guarantee of Australian teams getting in there to the extent that you had maybe 2 or 3 makes the whole tournament come alive for Australia. I just think that it's a bizarre sell to the fans to have Moana Pacifica instead of Bath. I mean, it's just kind of weird.
It needs to have sporting credibility, doesn't it? For people it's not automatically guaranteed to buy in, especially, if it was like this year, there'd be no South African teams in it. It's odds. It's just just taking that in isolation. It's odds that a Japanese team is guaranteed a place because Japan is a strategic market of growth for rugby union, but South Africa is not guaranteed a place. That is an odd thought process. And like I said, for me, to guarantee fans buy-in, it needs to have sporting credibility. And the version that has been presented to us so far, in my opinion, doesn't. It just a simple, like from a Northern Hemisphere's team point of view, you need to get in the top 8 of your competition a season before, and then get into a new season, do a pool stage, then do a knockout game, then you're in. Whereas in the Southern Hemisphere, it's get in the top 7 of an 11-team league, and you're in that same year. So, we could talk for an hour on this alone.
We could, no doubt. Let's get into the ERC. Let's get into the ERC quarterfinals in particular. They are this weekend, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out and how the top 8 has evolved over time. There was periods where we thought, and it looked actually pretty likely that Benetton would get in, and then suddenly they didn't. Edinburgh scrapes in up above them. Scarlet scrape in above them as well, I should say. What do we think out of that setup and those matchups? What are we expecting this weekend?
I think the default position is 4 home wins, which is what it was last year. It is, and that's maybe a little bit of a dull answer, but I think that's the working assumption. But then you've got there are angles for every away team apart from maybe Edinburgh. If I was looking down the version of the stats that I chose to pick from, the Bulls Edinburgh one is perhaps the most one-sided, but every other one you can go Sharks, Munster, anything can happen with those 2 teams. The Glasgow Stormers
certainly could be anything.
The Stormers are running hot. Glasgow are having a dip, but there's that extra context. Have we really seen the true level of either team in the recent weeks? And then Scarlets Leinster, of course, as everybody knows, is a repeat of the 2017 semi-final, where the Scarlets, who at the time were playing the greatest brand of rugby that the club game has ever seen, went to Leinster, went down to 14 men early in the first half, but still prevailed and became the first ever predecessor to the URC, the Celtic League team, to win an away semi-final, and then went on to smash Rassie Erasmus's Munster in the final by a record margin, and the greatest achievement in the history of rugby union.
Nicely played.
Yeah, well played. It will be interesting, and the brackets itself is interesting. I've got this little graphic for you as well, which sort of places which teams are on which side. So if it goes with the home teams, then Leinster will play Glasgow in the semi-final, and the Bulls will play the Sharks. So there's a decent chance, Harry, of a South African team playing in the final. which
Yeah,
is
for sure. And that would, I think, by now with Glasgow's fade, the Bulls are clearly the second best team in the comp. I
Yeah.
have it Stormers by 2, Bulls by 10, Leinster
I'd
by
have been stunned if you
8.
had anything other than the Stormers winning that.
No, I predict
I've
them to lose
noticed how much
sometimes.
Harry loves to talk about stats apart from when it comes to the Stormers, in which case
Yes,
all
yeah.
about-
No, we don't need to
it's
talk about that. Let's
all
talk about something
about-
else. Yeah.
I'm happy to talk about that, but I'll keep running through 18 Leinster and then Sharks by 1 point. Stormers got a much more. We have a much. I can say we at this point of the season. We are more evasive. We have a much better gain line. We're second in the league in gain line. They're 14th. Our line out is one of the best in the comp. Theirs is 12th, and I think it's going to give them problems. Our scrum is better by multiples, and then we have a more righteous heart, a cleaner mind. We have gone through more of a struggle. We're not known for bad jokes like Glasgow. I think also the absence, to carry on our theme about Augustus and Ram, is the absence of Xander and the absence of Jack Dempsey, who they thought could come back, is a problem because some of Glasgow's stats are buoyed by the fact of Jack Dempsey, who had a really great year, by the way, and guys like Xander. I also think that bringing a guy back in late who's been injured doesn't always work, to your point, Hugh. So I'm saying the Stormers take this in the only upset. I think I agree with you that in every other case, the home field will really matter. I think Munsters, the travel, the wear, the tear, there's a lot of backroom stuff going on there. I kind of worry about them, but I still think they have the cussedness, the doggedness to make it a dogfight with a very underperforming Sharks, badly coached Sharks.
Yeah, just to flick back to the Glasgow Stormers thing. So yes, Stormers line-out is better than Glasgow's. Stormers scrum is not better than Glasgow's. Stormers scrum is a form of self-harm. It is statistically the worst scrum in the world, according to Opta's stats. And then if we look at the attacking stats, carried on
in the world.
Yeah, worst scrum in the world success-wise and giving away penalties-wise as well. Carry dominance, Glasgow 39-38, so close. Line breaks to try conversion, Glasgow 40-39, so close again. And then total tries scored, Glasgow 70-66. And then tries conceded in the URC so far this season, Glasgow 40 in 18 games, the best of anyone in the league. Whereas the Stormers have conceded 57. Stormers have only won 3 games away from home. And Glasgow's defensive stats are difficult, but they're all good for Glasgow and not always that good for the Stormers. So I'm afraid I disagree with my extremely learned colleague, Harry Jones. I think that Glasgow are favourites for this game.
Three words at about a dozen syllables. Sasha Feinberg. Ngoma.
But he's going to be playing 12.
It doesn't matter where he plays. It doesn't matter where he plays.
I disagree.
It's been really interesting these last few days to see all this conversation. But it doesn't matter what number he's got on his back. He can just sort of pop. That seems like the sort of argument that you're trying to make.
It's a combination thing.
Yeah,
it's a combination. The Sasha Willemse combination, Sasha at 10, Willemse at 12, is very different to Manny at 10 and Sasha at 12. Yes. And the data that we have says that one works better than the other, and it's not the one that's going to be on show this Friday. So I do think that it's going to have a big bearing on it.
What are we expecting? The other thing about Harry talking about the Stormers, Hugh, is that when they're going really, really well, it becomes our line out and our gain line and our kick return. And when they're playing in the toilet, it's just Stormers are really disappointing, and I don't think they're very well coached and. Quick to disown. Very quick to disown. What are we expecting? Sorry.
I was just going to say that in terms of trajectories, the run that we've just seen the Stormers on is probably as good as we're going to see them because they run 4 home games against favourable opposition. So that was always going to be their purple patch.
Yeah. We do give them some chance though, obviously.
Yeah, I think they'll win, and I think they'll win pretty easily. I think that 26 by Glasgow is going to be a consolation try, so it'll be 28-19. Yeah.
What are we expecting style-wise from the 4 games this weekend?
The Bulls are going to do what the Bulls do, right? Their
just gonna
stats are
pound
extremely
Edinburgh
clear.
into the turf.
They're the lowest passing team in the ERC. They take a very direct route. They sped up their red zone though, which is nice. So they accelerate more, and they do turn line breaks into tries better than anyone else. They also turn offloads into tries. The offloads don't come out wide; they come in the middle, and they exit really properly. So they're just kind of going to come in there and say, we'll play some finals footy. You know, we go into the 22 9.7 times. We let you in 7.5 times. We think that's going to be enough. Edinburgh, Hugh, is going to have to bring some magic tricks.
It's going to have to be a smash and grab from Edinburgh for sure. Statistically, like I said, is the most one-sided. Edinburgh only won twice away from home, and I think one of those wasn't even Zebra. They drew with Zebra. So it's going to be the one thing that you can say for Edinburgh lately is they figured out how to get the ball in the hands of their best players more, and they seem to have figured out the 10 situation as well. They had Ben Healy to start the season, and for whatever reason that didn't work, and he got busted down to play for the A side by Sean Everett. And it's they getting the ball in Darcy Graham's hands as much as possible is their best bet. But
they won in Ireland twice, Hugh, just looking that back up. They beat Munster back in February, and they beat Connacht only 2 weeks ago.
There you go then. So I can't say that I've got any data to suggest that Edinburgh will win this. And when we talk about what you were talking about, Harry, in terms of where do teams go next, I just always get the sense that Jake is 2 games ahead, thinking 2 games ahead of where he is now, and he will have made a plan. Whether he'll have a specific plan for Edinburgh,
he'll have made a plan 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, do you think, I know because Harry's going to be WhatsApping Jake now going, here's what you should do, Jake. Here's how you win this game, Jake. But do you think he'll have made a plan?
Harry, we've been doing that for 3 weeks.
Do you think that Jake will have drawn up a list of all his potential playoff opponents and gone, here's the plan for each one of those?
Absolutely.
Or do you think he'll have just picked, these are 3 teams that realistically have a chance of beating us, and then everyone else will just focus on ourselves?
No, I'll tell you, he will take a tailor-made approach, and funnily enough, he does make last-minute shifts and plans. He's kind of a guy who would go to a coffee shop and someone would say something at the coffee shop, and he would take that over his assistant coaches sometimes. I know that because I said to him on the way to Munster,
I know that because I said to him in a coffee shop one day.
It was at Captain's Run, and I said, low trajectory is better to get to Kane and Moody because you give the little guy less time to gather and compete in the air. It's actually, people think you should go high to on the cross kicks. Really, you should shoot it to him, almost like an NFL spiral pass, because then it's very difficult for Darcy Graham to get into the air against Kane and Moody. My suspicion is this, Hugh, if I was, and I will definitely do that, by the way, I have been talking to Jake, is I think Edinburgh has no idea what to do with kicks. That's what I've thought for a while now. They are the only team that has no tries from kick return when they have all the essential ingredients that you would need. Yeah, they don't score, but they don't manufacture kick returns, but they have the material, so they're not doing it right. Which is something that their coach did at Sharks too. They didn't know how to coach kick return. So I would just test the premise at Loftus. I would just say to my kickers, we are gonna set a record. Let's go 40 kicks today. And I want them all shapes and sizes, all kinds of tumbly spirals, backward spirals, top spin, back spin. Just keep it going. And then have people ready for the scraps. And I think that's going to be tough for Edinburgh to play against because they are hoping to have, set piece, phase. I just deny them that. Say, no, you're not going to get any proper rugby. It's all going to be scramble.
Yeah.
I just to that point, when I watched Bath versus Edinburgh in the Challenge Cup, I really got the sense that Edinburgh didn't know what they were doing in their own 22. Their exits were not organised. When they did get transitions, when Bath gave them the transitions, they didn't know, okay, now what? Who are we giving this to? The vibe from Edinburgh fans all season has been that they don't think that Sean Everett is doing a great job. No. And when you said in the beginning, Brett, they kind of snuck into the top 8. They really did. They only won 8 games. So they had a losing record, but they got in there with 15 bonus points in 18 games, which is crazy. And like Benetton
nearly
missed
4
out.
wins.
Yeah, Benetton have missed out on playoffs with 9 wins, whereas Edinburgh are in with 8.
Yeah.
Damn, bonus points. And just be clarified for the audience, I never talk bad about the Stormers, but when they lose or don't do well, I just pretend that season doesn't exist. I go into extreme denial.
Yes.
That game didn't happen. It wasn't real.
Yeah.
So the Scarlets going to get rolled over, it looks like. But you said that they are not the least likely. So tell us the narrative story, Hugh, on how the Scarlets pull the second great upset against Leinster in one season.
The Scarlets just aren't afraid anymore. So the Scarlets this season have beaten Leinster and Bulls, so the top 2 in the table, albeit at home. And then they should have beaten Glasgow away. And then they made the Sharks look very normal in a kind of a... It's funny because when that final kick by the Sharks went over to deny the Scarlets a losing bonus point, Scarlets fans were happy because it meant that they got a weekend away in Dublin rather than having to fly down to Durban for the quarterfinal. So
thank you for making our weekend cheaper.
Yeah, so it was kind of a result that suited both parties really, and the narrative is just that firstly, Sam Costello is back, the Scarlets 10. You know, he is, in my opinion, the best fly half in Wales, and because his best ability is not availability. He's either away with Wales a lot or picks up a lot of injuries because of how he defends. He gets in that 12 channel. He'll let Bundyaki run at him and take him down. But unfortunately, that means he does get injured a fair bit. But what that means is that I, as a fan, get to watch Scarlets without Costello a lot and then with Costello when he comes back. And it's like a light switch. It is transformational. Right. And his vision, his variety, kick, pass, run, his marshalling, like you talk to fans in the stadium, you go, the loudest voice on the pitch is Sam Costello. He is the bus driver, as Andre Pretorius would say. And that's the kind of thing, that's for the Scarlets, that's what takes them up a level from the regular season, is having him back. And it's just a case of nothing to fear, you know, that we can just go out and play them. And Leinster have got that voice in the back of their head of like, can't screw this up. No trophies in 4 years. You can't get this wrong.
That's true. You know, it'd be catastrophic. It would be probably, now that I think about it, this loss, if it were to happen, would probably cause heads to roll more than anything else that's gone on this season. Scarlets
are very comfortable in their own skin. We've got a clear identity. We don't want rucks. We don't particularly want the ball very much anyway. If we're going to score, it's probably going to be off a set play. Although, like I said, with Costello coming back, we're now able to score off multi-phase, which we weren't really able to when he wasn't there. We are missing Gareth Davis at scrum half, which is a blow. So we're all backing Archie Hughes, who was the Wales under-20 scrum half last year. Come on, Archie, the Falcon, backing you to perform. And just the centres are cooking, the centres are working, and we've got the full Wales back 3. And although Ellis Mee hasn't been picked for the summer at all, but forget that. We're just a team that's got a very credible set piece. Our scrum, I think, is the second best success in the world. Our line out is the most successful in the URC. Like I said, we're just comfortable with who we are and how we play rugby. And all of the thinking has to be done by Leinster. And Dwayne Peel has had his critics as a head coach, but one thing he has shown is he does know how to unpick a team with a set play. If you look at the example of the try that we scored against Leinster before, of kind of Blair Murray being the matador with the shooter coming out, the out to in, the aggressive, it wasn't the 13, but it was like the Jesse Greel defense of like, I'm going to stand really deep. So you've got to run all that way to get to me. And then guess what? I've got the hips, I've got the feet to step you at the last minute. And then it's try time, baby. So look, we are probably going to lose, but they've got no reason to be afraid.
But what if they don't? There is something about absolute no pressure freedom, and that can be really releasing, Harry. Like you're right. The pressure is absolutely on Leinster because we didn't make it. We didn't make a Champions Cup. We've lost the last couple of semi-finals and whatever. We didn't make a Champions Cup final this year. if we don't get anything out of the ERG,
this
has been a terrible year.
It's beyond that, though, as well, Brett, because if that vast majority of that Leinster team is the Ireland team, if you go
which
back
is
to
the Lions team,
go back to 2023, they wanted to be the first ever Irish team to go past a quarterfinal. They didn't. Then the Six Nations after that, they wanted to be the first ever team first ever team in Six Nations history to get back-to-back Grand Slams. Didn't achieve it. Then they wanted to be the first ever Six Nations team to win 3 championships in a row. Didn't happen. Then throw in all of the Leinster failures on top of that, and you've got a group of players who have set themselves milestones and failed to reach them for 3 years straight.
Yeah, our friend Bernard Jackman has said that it's the most underwhelming professional sports return, and he was saying that in the context of the Champions Cup. So imagine if there were a hiccup here, it would be a disaster. I mean, absolute disaster. And it would also hurry up the thinking that I hear a lot more from my Irish friends now is, was the decline already happening? We just didn't see it. That was the peak already. And then now it's the decline is already there. We're a little bit too cumbersome. Scarlets is more evasive, more nimble, more agile. It seems like Leinster's being found out sometimes by just not having kind of what brought them to the party. They were always skipping the ball around. Now they're kind of a direct forward, downhill running monster team, but not monster enough to get over the top. So I think it's fascinating. I mean, of course, I've said they'll win by 18. They should win by a lot. But I think there's a part of us that's curious about what Scarlets can bring to the party. Yeah,
agree.
And there is such a thing as an honourable or a glorious defeat for the Scarlets as well, because we're in the Champions Cup. We've won this season, really, and Leinster Scarlets was, before the South Africans turned up, was a bit of a rivalry for a minute there. Like if you, like I said, we won in 2017, and then in 2018 we came up against what was probably the greatest Leinster team of all time, won the double in 2018, and we went to a Champions Cup semi-final against them, and then they beat us heavily. And then we went to the Pro 14 final in the Aviva Stadium against Leinster, and that was when Johnny McNicholl scored a hat-trick on the losing side, in the only player ever to do that in a final. And then in 2019, the year after that, they came to Parc y Scarlets. We beat them, and then COVID happened, and then Welsh rugby just went. But still, the point I'm making is we're basically equals, and it's anybody's game.
Very clear, obvious.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Will there be zebras involved in a Scarlet celebration if they win? There should be.
I don't know where we'd get one from at such short notice. I've been to Dublin Zoo. I just don't
recall seeing a zebra.
I don't remember seeing a zebra there. They had a lion.
Fair.
They had giraffes. So that'll have to do.
Just paint a giraffe. Easy. We do need to move on, but quickly, Sharks Munster is. We've all agreed before we hit record that that's probably the closest of the 4 games.
I think so, but it's also the one team, the Sharks I'm talking about now, that could, having just sort of won by a little bit every week and underwhelming, they could bring it together for something very scary at any point in time. Everything just clicks. And the scrum just demolishes Munster. The line out is porous on Munster's side already. And you have these streak-away runners that are just, pure class. And they finally bring it all together. And finally, the Shark Tank has a fun time, not just because of the swimming pool and the beer garden and the world's best fry outside and in Schlanger Rocks, but actually for the rugby on the pitch, that would be nice.
And the fact that you can just park straight into the stadium like you did last year.
Exactly.
I saw on Sharks socials that they had a team building session around a braai, and I was like, don't you do this every day anyway? Like, that was just a bit odd. But if you talk about players who know how to play finals footy, I give you the Sharks, and they won the Currie Cup in a manner that they absolutely should not have done. And they won it, and they've won the Challenge Cup, and now they're in the playoffs of the URC by hook or by crook. They got there in the top 4 of all things. And like you said, almost if I had to pick any team to go to Leinster and win, it would ironically be the Sharks, and that is pure vibes, no stats.
Yeah, they're stubbornly not. They're stubbornly bad in victory, and they also can stubbornly just sneak one, just steal a win.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Munster has also having a little bit exhausted, just the exhaustion factor of a long, weird, emotional up and down season. A lot of players leaving. Sometimes you can hype that too much in the locker room. Oh, it's the final time, and just get spanked. So what do you think about where are we going next? Premiership, the Prem.
So let's go Super Rugby.
Right.
It's the final round this weekend, and it's kind of interesting around a couple of games, and that is particularly around the implications around top three. So the Highlanders host the Chiefs' first game of the weekend, and then it's Brumbies Crusaders, Blues Waratahs, Hurricanes Moana, Reds Fiji and Drua. So all bar that last game have some degree of finals implications, and the top three won't change. 4, 5, 6 can change, and there's only 2 or 3 teams that now definitely can't make it. One is the Drua, one is the Force, who don't play this weekend. So if the Chiefs win the first game, they finish first. So that's easy enough. The Brumbies and Crusaders in the second game will determine who finishes second, and that's important for home semi-finals and things like that.
That's huge, Brett, because of the 6. Just in case people don't know it, right? Take us through the 6-team situation.
So they've gone to a 6-team playoff this year with the drop to 11 teams. So 3 qualifying finals hosted by the top 3. 3 winners go through. Top ranked loser goes through as a lucky loser for the semi-finals, and then once they're in the semi-finals, then they're kind of re-ranked 1 to 4, and then it's 1 plays 4, 2 plays 3, and all that sort of stuff. But the ultimate thing is that you want to finish top 2, win the qualifying final, then you host the semi-final. And basically the only team, you've got to go back to 2015, I think, when the Highlanders beat the Waratahs in Sydney. It was the last time a team made the final playing a semi away from home. So it doesn't happen very often. So then the Blues and the Waratahs is interesting because the Waratahs, despite having imploded the last 6 weeks, can still actually play finals football this year. And all they have to do, Hugh, is beat the Blues in Auckland at Eden Park for the first time since 2009 and the second time ever, and then hope that Moana don't bounce back from the thumping they copped last week to the Chiefs and beat the Hurricanes straight after. So it's dead easy as far as equations go.
Sounds simple. Yeah,
it is. It's very, very simple. It doesn't.
Where's the Opta guy from the URC to give us the percentage chances things? The one, obviously, the big game is Brumbies Crusaders. That's like knockout footy already, and there's I don't think that game can be boring. You just whatever happened, if it's 3-0, it's still going to be gripping.
Except that they're not going to show each other anything. That's why I think it could actually be a bit boring.
But it does matter who wins, though. So
it definitely matters who wins. So very much so. Yeah.
Do you say, look, what's the odds of us facing each other again? No, I don't know. It's either way. That's definitely the game of the week. The Highlanders Chiefs. Is there a world in which the Chiefs have one eye on the week after, and the Highlanders, if you look at the table, you'd say, "Well, this is a walkover for the Chiefs." But if you look at the games, you'd say 7 losing bonus points in 13 games. And is this just finally the week that something clicks for the Highlanders, and they finally, they turn a good performance into a win? There is that there, although it never tends to work out like that, but it could.
It could. And then you say, how much are they still stinging from bottling that game in Christchurch last weekend where they had half a dozen opportunities to beat the Crusaders and they didn't. And then they're at home, so then so you start building. Oh, maybe they can actually beat the Chiefs, who might have a week, who might have an eye on a week forward. But then you also go Highlanders in the last round can't play finals; they're done.
You also
That's
look at
how I
Clayton,
think it actually plays out.
you also look at Clayton McMillan and realize.
And I knew
that
you were going to bring him up. Yes,
he has not put a foot wrong on his management. He's had some injuries here and there, just like everyone says they do, but he hasn't ever made excuses. He's built them to peak. His pack is peaking. His pack looks deadly in the Super Rugby context. It looks like they won't let this thing drop, and that they're supremely driven to send him off to Munster next year with a cup. And that it just looks like to me that Chiefs have this unless someone can take it away from them.
That's something in itself, isn't it? So often we see when coaches, they're leaving, we see the team go, no, okay, right, this is kind of over. But it hasn't happened. And obviously Razor did the same thing with the Crusaders. And God, I'm just not looking forward to him coming and coaching Munster, because I think it's going to go really well.
He's such a good coach.
So that's gonna make the URC a lot more difficult for everybody else, I think, when he comes up and takes over Munster.
The Chiefs this year, Hugh, have only not been first on the log for 3 of the 15 weeks. Most recently, this last 2 weeks, and those 3 weeks they were second. So they've been running top 2 all year. Their average position this year is like 1.2.
I'd like to know how far that goes back. But like, if you go over the past 3 seasons, how much of that time have they spent in the top 2? Because obviously they were runners up to the Blues the season before. So I'm just kind of, I don't know why I'm being so hopeful. I think I just want the Brumbies to win it just for a bit of variety, But and then obviously I want Moana. Obviously I want Moana to get top 6 as well, but I think it might just be a bridge too far to go away to the Canes and get a result.
So,
because I have a spreadsheet for these sorts of things, Harry, sorry. The Chiefs finished 4th last year. They were top in 2023 and they were 3rd in 2022. So that kind of supports your theory here.
So help me out, Brett, on this, because these damn bonus points forbid any kind of simplicity. But is there a world in which Hurricanes and the Blues are in the finals?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the Hurricanes are currently, I'm just going to show you the table there. The Hurricanes are currently 4th. So if they beat Moana, they stay 4th. There's a bit of a gap between the Brumbies in 3rd and the Hurricanes in 4th. So if they win, they stay 4th. If the Hurricanes win, that means Moana don't win. The Blues then beat the Waratahs. The Blues finish 6th. So yes, that is a very real scenario. It's probably expected.
Here's what I will say about those 4 Kiwi teams. There's danger afoot there because they have different matchup capabilities. Yeah. And I think the Blues have 1 ridiculous upset win in them, but not 2. And I think the Hurricanes are red hot right now. So actually it's building towards something of a climax here, even inside the New Zealand derbies, which is interesting.
The interesting thing there is if the Blues scrape into 6th, that would have them playing the Chiefs in a qualifying final, and they would absolutely fancy their chances in Hamilton.
Yes.
So the Blues won't be able to get through to the semi-final as a lucky loser, but they could definitely get through by beating the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So
very cool.
It'll be interesting. The Premiership, it's the last round of the Premiership as well. 5 games there this weekend, all kicking off at 3:05. That being the case, and me not having 5 sets of eyes, which of those 5 games should I watch live?
Well, that's interesting.
Quite at the quite convenient time of midnight my time. So
it's interesting because Gloucester is actually on 51 points right now on the log. So you have them at 51 and Bristol at 53. So there's it's a very close call. And then you have Sale 1 point ahead of Bristol. And you only when you get to Tigers, you have a little bit of a split there, 56. And Tigers are playing Falcons. So you sort of, let's give them that. And then Bath can do whatever they're going to do. Gloucester and Saracens at 51, you can see some permutations there going on. And, Bristol's looking over their shoulders because Harlequins are tricky proposition.
Yeah.
You know?
Let me show you this little graphic, partly because I actually love this graphic, and we've talked about great social media graphics this year. This part of the playoff is actually quite brilliant, and I really hope that Super Rugby social media kiddies are watching this and they can replicate it. So Leicester Tigers just need 1 point from their last match. Sale need 2 or more to reach their finals. Bristol just needs to win. Gloucester are praying about other results. Saracens are praying about other results as well.
Yep.
So it's a really cool way of showing that, I think.
I think there's a very real chance that a team gets into the Prem playoffs in 4th with a 50% win record, because Bristol have only won 4 from 8 at home. I'm going to do a thread on Bristol at some point. It's going to be called the worst good team in rugby. And because their stats are absolutely mental. Like, they've got average points for 34, average points against 33, and a 50% win record. That's just at home. It's actually the same overall as well, funnily enough.
Bristol did rank quite highly in our quest to find the most average team in rugby last year too, from memory.
But I maintain that it's Sale Sharks, because if they were an item of clothing, they'd be a grey tie. To answer the question, which game should you tune in for? I don't know.
That's not very helpful.
I know. I'm sorry, but
Exeter Sale doesn't interest me at all. Gloucester Northampton could be something in that.
Unless Northampton are just like, our race is run.
Unless Northampton just go, yeah, we're done.
I think it's Bristol versus Quins. That's what I think.
Yeah,
that's my guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Leicester will beat Newcastle pretty comfortably. Saracens, by the time they play, they're all playing together.
The thing is, though, as well, going back to your point about bonus points, Harry, if it does come down to that, bonus points are pretty much guaranteed in the Premiership. Like, its average is 8 tries per game. I think. Yeah,
because everyone scores 4 tries.
Yeah, I think there's I can't remember exactly what the stat is, but it's a crazy stat about what percentage of games see a try bonus point awarded in the first half. Like, it's gone absolutely try bananas. Try bonus points, Bath 14, it's out of 17 games. Bath 14, Leicester 11, Sale 10, Bristol 15, Gloucester 12, Saracens 11. This is out of 17 games. Harlequins 10, Northampton 9. That's
there's
all the way down to 8th.
There's a misconception about the Prem and how it sits in the 4 top leagues on attack. We were playing around with some stats all day today, actually, while Brett was sleeping. You and I were trading little graphics and stuff. But what's funny about it is, that the Holy Grail, entering the 22 and then also not allowing teams in the 22. The Prem is really generous on that. So 4 of the top 20 teams, are in the Prem. 7 of the top 20 teams, entering the 22, and then allowing, they're terrible at keeping you out. So it's just this kind of free-flowing, high-passing, Bristol being at the forefront of that, but also Gloucester does this, and there are other teams like the Saints, obviously, famously. They're not doing this maul, grind, set-piece trudging that some critics like Ben Smith are saying falsely. He hasn't looked at the games. You would say that the Prem and Super Rugby have a lot more in common than people understand. It's a high-scoring league. Yeah.
I've heard people say that the Prem is like old Super Rugby, and I remember the stat that jumps out to me, it's actually from last season, was like Bristol beat a stupid number of defenders in a game, something like 50, 55 defenders in a single game, but scored 5 tries. And the team they were playing against also scored 5 tries, but with 15 defenders beaten. And it's like, okay, cool, but you're doing all this and you don't need to.
This is also why Super Rugby went away from the 4-try bonus point, because there was too many games were becoming, 42-36, and it was just like they were shit games of rugby. Whereas now the 3 having to score 3 tries more than your opposition, it adds an extra layer of jeopardy. You can have a bonus point and then you can lose it, and so and then there's reason for opposing teams who are not going to win to actually play out and try and take a bonus point off them, because that's really important. Whereas if everyone can just get a bonus point by halftime by scoring 4 tries, it's just sort of a little bit processional. So just to reiterate that point, Hugh, and because I have a spreadsheet for these things, in Super Rugby this year, 58 bonus points have been awarded. 31 of them are losing bonus points. So, and I've not done the research to know this, but my gut feeling is that this is one of the few seasons of the last couple where there's been more losing bonus points than try bonus points. It speaks to how close the comps have been this year.
Yeah,
crazy.
I know Harry still hates it though.
I know he does, and we'll never agree on this.
We need to be careful, Brett, because this is the man who brought down sevens, and it's collapsing all around us.
Have you seen sevens tumbling?
Yes, it's
so good.
It's very true. The power that he influences is unbelievable. It's
the pickleball of rugby is out of here. No, it's staggering to think about 31 losing bonus points. But anyway, that's fine. People want to do that.
It's an interesting one.
Speaking as a fan of a team that up until this season mostly lost, bonus points are cool.
Yeah, they keep games going. I've got no doubt about that, and I am more than happy for that to be the hill that I die on, for this to be the point that we disagree on, Harry. This is the 8-9 combo with Brett McKay Harry Jones, and Huw Griffin is still with us. We've just not let you go, mate, so now you have to stay to the very end.
Breach of protocol. Anyway. This is like the TMO is on the field.
Absolutely. Imagine if the
Playing
TMO
the full
was
80.
The TMO was pitch side. Wouldn't that be something? Anyway, we'll be back with the weekend post-mortem, looking back at all the big games and all the big results this weekend. That's out late Sunday, early Monday, depending on where you are in the rugby world. What's left of games of the week, I hear you ask. Well, the top 14 in particular is what's left. And what do we like from here? There's a couple of interesting games in there. I sort of am inclined to think maybe Claremont, Stade Francais at the top. A win can put Claremont into the top 6. Maybe it's La Rochelle, Perpignan. Maybe it's Toulon, Bordeaux. What's the game of the week in there?
I actually think that this is a good thing about the top 14 is that there are absolutely every week there's a game where you're like, I don't care about that. But then there's one really obvious one where you go, that's the game. And if you're someone who watches multiple leagues, then it's kind of like, oh, that's easy. I'll tune in for that one. And I think that and obviously the top 14 are good for having the Saturday night and the Sunday night games. I think Toulon UBB normally would have been the game of the weekend.
I agree with you.
Because it effectively decides who finishes second. If Toulon can get 5 points from that and deny UBB anything, then they will move into second.
Won't Bordeaux stay ahead though with all the tie breaks, tries and points differential and all that?
Maybe you might have got me on that.
Have I got you on technicality there?
You may do.
Keep talking. I'll look up a table.
But the thing is, like, what kind of team are UBB going to put out? Because not only is it away from home, I think there's taking blood samples from players. Then they've got olives in them, and so it's.
Right
it
now,
might be a
Riku's
little bit of a damn squib.
Right now, Riku's in Tahiti or something. He's walking around in the streets of Tahiti.
He's in a hospital in Tahiti.
Yeah. The other one is, if another day I'd have stories to tell on that. But the other one, sneaky one, is Van hosting Po, which is the top 14 hipster game of the week because they're two very likable teams that aren't going to win anything. And Van are not dead. Van are still fighting for this title / staying in this league. And Perpignan are away to La Rochelle. And if Van managed to get a result here, it drags them right back up there with Perpignan with everything to play for a week to go in a relegation battle.
Interesting.
So that's one.
Yeah. I'm happy to go with that. I have to admit I skated past that game, but I'm happy to go with it. To go back to my previous point
did you freeze?
About tiebreakers, Toulon have 14 wins, Bayonne have 16, and there is also about a 60-point difference between them. So by my calculations, Bordeaux can only be equal on competition points, but number of wins and points differential will count against them.
Okay. All right then. Oh well, I like UBB, so I'm happy with that anyway.
so scratch that one. Yeah, no, I'm happy with Van and Poe. We can definitely go with that.
Last one, Cast versus Bayonne. That is a team with waves on their jersey versus a team with surfboards on their jersey.
Oh, very cool.
I like that. That's good.
So that's fun, if nothing else.
We can go with that. Yeah, we can definitely go with that. In Japan this weekend, not sure how much Japanese rugby you've been taking note of, Hugh, but it is the second leg of the promotion relegation games, the third, fourth playoff, and then the grand final as well. So, Honda Heat lead contested liners on aggregate 29-25. The Toyota Industry Shuttles Aichi lead Irayasu D-Rocks 43-42 on aggregate. So the Shuttles are the Division 2 team, so they're ahead on that. The third, fourth playoff, no one will care about. The Kobe Steelers against Panasonic, and the grand final is Toshiba Brave Lupus v Kubota Spears. This is the first grand final in League One guys in Japan that does not feature Panasonic.
I was very surprised.
We're only talking about 3 or 4 year history.
Well, yeah, I do keep an eye on the results for this one, and thank you for explaining the relegation things, because I don't understand that.
I'm going to admit, I've only just got my head around it in the last 48 hours.
Right. Okay. So, but Spears upsetting Wild Knights, that was an amazing result. Didn't see that coming. So I think it's Richie Mo'unga is to lose.
It feels like it
at the moment, that league, but I'll see if I can tune in for it. I really enjoyed the grand final last year with the try that was ruled out in overtime for the Wild Knights. They thought they'd won it. So, yeah, looking forward to that. And just find Japanese. Every podcast that I do and I get a guest on, the conversation always ends up with Japan. It feels like all rugby roads lead to Japan at the moment. So, looking forward to that.
I feel like there's a way for us to buy some rights into the Japan League somehow to broadcast something that just no one's thought about. Just kind of been left on a shelf somewhere. So I'm going to look into that. I do also like the Odd Couples, and I like the Odd Couple of St. Bernard, Lieutenant Colonel Foley, RAF bomber pilots, Malcolm Marx. I'm trying to think of those two guys out on the town in Japan, scoring some sushi and some fun, and I just cannot get them together. But they're playing very well.
And you can throw Bryn Hall into that mix as well.
Well, Bryn and Malcolm are like golf buddies. They become best friends. But
apparently,
Bernard, the Iceman, and Malcolm Marx. I'm having a hard time there. But
the oddest of odd fellows there, isn't it?
Here's the plan. I'll kick it to the corner, and then you maul it over.
Yeah, he scored a lot of tries, Malcolm. He's scoring a lot of tries.
Absolutely. It is the penultimate, Harry, round of Major League Rugby this weekend. What do you like there? It's a funny old sort of round. You've sort of got top teams playing bottom teams and bottom teams playing top teams. And I actually found this a hard round to pick. The game I kind of settled on is middle of that list. Old Glory DC v RFC LA in Maryland on Saturday, simply because in terms of average games, that is third in the Eastern Conference against third in the Western Conference.
Yeah, that's cool. Also, there's a good podcast in American rugby. It's called Scrum of the Earth.
Well, this is interesting then. So we've lost our audio of our co-host. Can you hear us, Harry? This is curious. There is a good podcast in the States called Scrum of the Earth. I agree with him.
David, a good friend of mine, he will be absolutely delighted with a shout out on this podcast. He listens to it every week. So shout out David. And I think what Harry was about to say was he did a special episode on MLR in the last week, not only talking about the state of play, but also the history of the competition. So people should definitely check that out.
Absolutely. We can wrap this up then, mate. This is another great episode of the 8-9 Combo done and behind us. Our sincere thanks to you, mate, for joining us again and for outlasting one of the co-hosts. Thank you, mate. It's been a good chat.
My absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much.
No worries at all. Hugh is on Twitter and on Blue Sky at Huw Griffin Rugby. Harry is back with us. Can you hear us, mate?
Yeah, sorry, I got knocked out.
You did. You did get knocked out. You're back, and you're back.
Load shedding all over the world nowadays. We're exporting it.
You're back in time just to say goodbye. Harry and I remain on the socials in our usual places at BMC Sport and at Harry Bordy Jones. And don't forget, be sure to find and follow the 8-9 Combo on Twitter, on YouTube, on Blue Sky as well. Leave us a rating or review wherever you can. Share us as far and wide and all that as well. This is the 8-9 Combo, the short side set piece combination you didn't realize you needed in a rugby podcast. Sean Maloney is loaded for the closer. I'm Brett McKay. He's Harry Jones. He's Huw Griffin. And we'll be back in your ears in a few days' time with the weekend post-mortem.
Come play with us.
Here goes Jones with another bruising run. He links up with McKay, who pops back to Jones. They can't. They won't. They will. What a try. The Dream Team Combo go in again.